The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. On December 13th, 1981, the government of Poland declared martial law. It outlawed the Solidarity Federation of Unions and threw its leader, Lech Walesa, in jail. He was detained for a year before being released, and once out, he continued the fight against the oppressive rule of the Polish government. Walesa was forced underground, where he continued to protest against the harsh economic conditions in Poland. Years later, in 1988, labor unrest, led by Walesa, forced the government to restore Solidarity's legal status and to sanction free elections for a limited number of seats. Solidarity won an overwhelming majority of those seats. And the following year, Walesa went on to become the first democratically elected president of the country. Walesa was a towering international figure who stared down the barrel of a gun and demanded an end to the communist rule in Poland. Former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney said, "Solidarity and Walesa were the spark that lit the fuse, which ultimately brought down what Ronald Reagan called the evil empire of Soviet communism." I invited Lech Walesa, who is on a speaking tour in Canada and Ottawa, to join me for a conversation that matters about the current prospects for peace, leadership, democracy, and the challenges the world is facing today. Dzień dobry, President Walesa. Thank you for joining us. President Walesa, you, when you were at the forefront of issues in Poland dealing with a communist government, you confronted a rigid, bipolar world in which the risks were clear, but they were contained. Today, we face a much more fragmented, multipolar order, where authoritarian states cooperate loosely and unpredictably. Do you believe that the system today is more dangerous than the structured deterrence of the Cold War?
Niebezpieczeństwa zawsze są. Problem polega na tym, by
There are always dangers, but the problem is to see what they are and fight them. In practice, the world looks a little bit different from what you say. The theoreticians see it still differently.
Praktycy widzieli świat
There were two elements practical people saw. One was that communism had exhausted its capabilities and possibilities, and the second was that the post-World War II order had also exhausted its capabilities and was hindering the further development of the world. The theoretician would say that only nuclear war could lead to world change, whereas the practical people said that you need arguments to change the world. And it had to be changed because it was unreformable. So we knew that the old world had to be changed, but the reason we did it is to build a new world, and that is the task which we face today. Everything which is relevant today should be a discussion, because we need to separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were. So this discussion entails all the choices, meaning also elections we make, all the even bad decisions we make, all this in order to arrive at a new world. We need to understand that in order to build this new order, we need to reorganize everything, meaning political parties, political platforms. We need to redefine the left and the right. We need to amend everything. So right now we should discuss in order to choose the right solutions for the next, for the new millennium. And after we find these, arrive at these solutions, we should find the people or the bodies who will implement them.
So that change that came about in the late 1980s into the 1990s was the introduction of democracy. Do you believe that democracy in Europe, in Poland, and of course we see what it represents in Russia right at the moment, needs that same realignment or change?
We need to understand that Russia never had democracy, and people don't believe in democracy there. Whereas in the West, we had a democracy which came from, in its present form, from the times of Churchill. And this also means that it isn't necessarily adequate to today, and the people in the West also tend not to believe in democracy anymore. We need to understand that right now we've got a completely different mass media, and whereas before people would follow the politicians where they went. The current situation is that the mass media are exposing things which they had never exposed before. Therefore, people stop believing typical politicians and refuse to stand by them.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So, does the volume of misinformation that exists in an internet world, is that what you say poses a threat to democracy?
Well, you can see what sort of people are being elected these days for president and other leadership positions. They are demagogues and populists. And the public knows that they are demagogues and populists. And that means we have to amend democracy and adapt it to today's times. What can we learn from the Russian-Ukrainian war? It's not about Putin, it was not about Stalin. It's about the political system which poses a threat to the entire world. If Putin had, say, 2 5-year terms, he would never be able to build such a threat to the entire world. So, every democracy in the world, in every country, including party platforms, should have a max of 2 5-year terms. And there's a second matter which we should also adopt or focus on. And that entails all the organizations. Everyone who is elected to a post can always be recalled. But in order not to make a mess of things, such a referendum would have to be signed by more people than voted for that person. And there's a third point which should be relevant to all political parties and all organizations as such. The transparency of financing. Only if we maintain those 3 points will democracy be saved and people will believe in democracy. Otherwise, we will have one big mess. And the other thing is that we need to think what the notion of the left and the right mean. So it's both the left and the right. And we can't carry on with solutions and programs that were relevant 100 years ago. Those were completely different conditions and levels of development. That's what my revolution was about, in order to dismantle the old world order in order to be able to build a new one. And now we're talking to each other, discussing how this new world is supposed to look like. including the role of the United States in these new conditions. Without the United States playing a role, you cannot solve any big issue in the world. But the United States is mired in this old world order and the way things were being done back then. And that's the reason why the world is at a standstill, because you don't really have any leadership. That's where the mess comes from, and things which a lot of people don't like.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So if we look at the current landscape in the information or news media world, and we take into consideration, let's go back to the 1980s when Ronald Reagan was president of the United States. He had a global view of the United States' role in managing and working with countries around the world to create a different world and different outcome. How do we attract those quality leaders into the current environment so that they can replicate much of what Ronald Reagan, you, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope Paul managed to achieve?
We need to practically look and understand what is going on. No one can impose any leaders on anyone else. And it's in discussions that leaders simply rise to the top. Once again, the former era fell because of continued development. And we arrived at a era of the word of information, of globalization. And what we are as citizens is sitting on the fence. So one had fallen and the other one hasn't really been built. So like I said, this is a time of the word, time of discussion about how this new structure is to look like, and like I said, the role of the United States in this new order. For this, we need to redefine everything, including the left and the right, political parties and whatnot. The previous era was a dirty era, which had revolutions, which had wars, and countries would try to fool one another. Now nobody believes anyone else. So you have to convince me, I have to convince you, and only then can we start to build.
So when you take a look right at the moment, the situation with the war in Ukraine and President Trump's efforts to negotiate with President Putin, what do you see as being the major roadblocks to finding some kind of peace?
Until the end of the 20th century, all the nation states you can see on the world map were formed thanks to incorporating other nations. Today's Russia was created by forcibly incorporating over 60 nations. Even the United States needed the civil war in order to create a truly united states. And this was the way things were done until the end of the 20th century. But at the end of towards the end of the 20th century, a new concept, a new idea arrived, which meant that due to technological development, we needed to increase the size of management. But this cannot be done in the old way by force, by threats, by wars. We need to convince each other in a democratic way, in a voluntary way, in a nonviolent way, and through larger organizations such as the EU, the UN, even NATO. China and Russia today are still thinking in the old way, where they want to grow by force. So the question now is, which concept, which idea will prevail? Solidarity was an example of how to fight and how to win. If we were to fight just like Ukraine and Russia are today, we can never be successful. No one would have would have supported solidarity back in the day. So we need to come back to the methods of solidarity, and then we will win in Ukraine. Because even if we beat Russia in the old way, meaning militarily, only militarily, Russia will rise in 10 or 15 or 20 years, and our children and grandchildren will have a problem. What we need to do is help the Russians change their system and help them begin to believe in democracy. Only in such a way can we win.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So, with the war in Ukraine still carrying on, and so much of it now being drone attacks, and there were 2 days in which Russian drones entered into Polish airspace on the 9th and 10th of September. What do you recommend should Poland's response be? Is it that we continue dialogue, or do they have to prepare for some kind of armed intervention?
Of course, if Putin, you have to shoot back, but we need to allocate more of our means towards a political solution. If we help Russia change its system, they will be thankful to us and grateful to us in the long run. And these methods aren't hard at all.
It comes back to having an information campaign and working towards motivating Russian citizens to embrace a new way of governance and leadership?
Well, yes, you need to do this, and you need to do this in a simple way, using simple methods just like solidarity. So, from the very beginning, I proposed make a list of all the Russians who perished, and make a list of all the people who died from each city, each village, each settlement. And use the media in every form, from newsletters to the latest media, to show people in a given place how many of their neighbors died. And this list should have a short heading. Dear Russians, we don't want to fight you. We want to help you live peacefully. You've got the wrong political system. Look at the list and look at that name. With this, you used to go for a beer with this guy, and now he's 6 feet under. And look at the other name. That's the name of the sons of your neighbor. And Putin has also killed them. Do you realize that you have been already conscripted by Putin? Let's say you get a conscription letter on Friday. You might survive for 2 days, maybe 3. I want to save you. I want you to live. So your leader cannot have more than 2 5-year terms. He cannot have anything that goes beyond that. If he sees such a letter, will that person leave? Such methods or similar methods should be used. Of course, among others.
Well, and this is the central message in your speaking tour when you're here in North America and in particular in Canada.
Yes, because this was the way I led my struggle, my fight, and believe me, we had more difficult conditions than we've got today. I had the entire Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact on my back. And I managed to lead this fight in a good way. Of course, the communists would have backed up on any arrangements, any treaties, and destroy what I won. Just like the pact with the Ukraine when it handed over its nuclear weapons, where all the world's powers, including the United States, signed the treaty whereby Ukraine was supposed to be safe. Back then, a mistake was made. There was no consolidation of that treaty where Ukraine handed over its nuclear arms. And the same would have happened with my victory. The victory had to have safeguards. Decisions had to be made for that victory to be irrevocable. That's why I would travel to the United States and try to convince people to take such decisions. I managed to convince the public, but I did not manage to convince the politicians. Your presidents didn't want to take a tough decision. They would help us, they would support us, but no one took this safeguarding decision. However, one president did. That was Bill Clinton. And indeed, he was the true winner of in that situation. Not me, it was Clinton. And that's why he deserves a Nobel Prize, and he should get it because he was the true winner. He allowed NATO and what followed suit were allowed into the EU. And when Ukraine handed over its nuclear weapons, the same should have been done with Ukraine. And we would have a different situation now, and it was possible.
Do you think it's possible now?
If we maintain our current fight in the current way, as I said, yes. What is the situation now, today? Putin, he organized almost all the world against himself. So, what is necessary is for us to be in solidarity, to discuss and come up with good solutions, and then we will win. It is unheard of to mobilize the entire world against yourself like that. And future generations will never forgive us if we don't take this opportunity. So we've got a chance to put Russia in order, and then we can deal with China. Same way, peacefully and wisely.
Well, you bring a message of hope. I thank you for your time today, and I wish you great success for the remainder of your speaking tour.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dzień dobry.